Welcome to Option Rally TV. Let's take a look at last week's market action and what to expect this coming week. Janet Yellen and the FOMC keep markets busy. Putin officially annexes Crimea, and Bitcoin finds 200,000 Bitcoins. Let's take a quick look at what is happening in the global markets now. The S&P 500 hit a record high right out of the gate on Friday. The rally faded almost immediately. The index bounced around for most of the day before ending lower. The Dow Jones closed in the red, erasing a gain of more than 100 points from earlier in the day. The Nasdaq was the hardest hit, falling more than 1%. Markets were rattled Wednesday after Fed Chair Janet Yellen suggested that the central bank could begin hiking interest rates sooner than expected. But worries about central bank policy quickly faded and the markets rebounded Thursday. In Russia, the stock market and ruble are under pressure after the U.S. announced sanctions against more high-ranking Russian individuals and the bank. Western nations are trying to put pressure on Russia after it has annexed Crimea. The analyst said capital flight from Russia will likely be extremely high in the first quarter, and these sanctions will send a chill through the Russian banking sector. But the Americans and Europeans are unlikely to impose on Moscow the kind of crippling sanctions they used against Iran, according to Eurasia. Okay, European markets ended higher. Asian markets mostly closed with gains. China's yuan fell to one-year lows against the dollar earlier this week as the nation's central bank allows the currency to trade more freely. Investors have also been worried about bankruptcies in China after the nation's first corporate bond default last month. In corporate news this week, MTGOX said it found 200,000 forgotten Bitcoins on March 7th, a week after the Tokyo-based digital currency exchange filed for bankruptcy protection and announced it had lost nearly all of the 850,000 Bitcoins it held, worth some 51 billion yen at today's prices. MTGOX made the announcement on its website. The Bitcoins were found in an old format online wallet that it had thought no longer held any Bitcoins, but which it checked again after the bankruptcy filing. And in the foreign exchange market, the greenback held firm above 102.40 yen in early trading after soaring about 1 yen, triggered by Yellen's remarks. She signaled a possibility that the Fed may end its quantitative easing policy in the autumn and begin raising interest rates some 6 months later. Her remarks came after the U.S. Central Bank decided its two-day Federal Open Market Committee meeting through Wednesday to continue tapering asset purchases under the policy. The ECB announced the banks will repay a total of 18.909 billion euros in crisis loans next week. The amount was more than this week's repayment of 10.075 billion and far above the expected 7 billion. European Commission's consumer confidence improved sharply in March to reach its highest level since late 2007. The euro ended the week just below the 1.38 range, while the US dollar climbed steadily to trade at 80.28. The UK pound eased most of the week's trade at 1.6488, unable to fight the dollar's strength. Global investors will be watching United States fourth quarter GDP data this week, as well as the latest update on the health of the Chinese manufacturing sector. On Monday in China, the HSBC Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index for March is due. Moving to the commodities market, gold edged up on physical buying on Friday, but was on track for its biggest weekly fall since September, as the dollar firmed after the U.S. Federal Reserve hinted an interest rate hike in the first half of 2015. Bullion briefly touched a 6-month high of 1391.76 on Monday on tensions in Ukraine and concerns about growth in China before investors booked profits and turned their attention to the safe haven US dollar. Gold closed at 1330.85. Oil prices rose Friday on increasing fears of a disruption in crude supplies to Europe following the expansion of US sanctions against Russia. Russia absorbs the Crimean Peninsula following a referendum which is regarded as illegal by the West. Light sweet crude moved up 56 cents to settle at 99.46. This is Amy Anderson from Option Rally signing off. Watch for some exciting changes to Option Rally TV coming in April. Okay, have a great week. Bye.